In the 8th hour of the 47th day of the 4th moon rotation on the planet Sablon 9, where the skies are not blue but a very specific shade of anxious lavender, Commander Ilarius Quen adjusted his left glove for the 14th time, not because it was loose, but because it felt, almost imperceptibly, uneven. This glove adjustment was critical to the next sequence of events, none of which would directly involve the glove. The air outside the biodome was pressurized to 92.3% of breathable norms for humanoid respiratory functions. Inside, however, it was exactly 100%. That 7.7% difference caused a slight ear pressure for most species and an overwhelming sense of romantic nostalgia for the species of Ilarius's late wife, Tundra Vi. Tundra Vi once said, "Love feels like ear pressure. You can't explain it, but you notice it when you land too fast." He never forgot that. Even now, as he stared at the atmospheric regulator Terminal 3, the least interesting of the three, he thought of her. Action called. The alarms did not blare, but instead let out a series of mild, rhythmic beeps, the kind of beeps one might hear in a waiting room or perhaps a hardware store on a sleepy Tuesday. These were not danger beeps. These were suggestion beeps. A transmission had arrived from Grid Delta, an unknown object approaching at .003 light speed. This wasn't fast, but it was determined. Ilarius called for backup. No one came, not because they were dead, not because they were busy, but because all 234 of his crew members were attending a mandatory empathy training session in Dome Room C, which was being led by a holographic goat named Emotional Module 77. The goat spoke in parables. Back to the transmission. The object was not an object. It was a woman. Or more accurately, a construct shaped like a woman, wrapped in reflective armor and hurtling slowly, ever so slowly, through space, arms at her sides, eyes closed, and surrounded by a soft ring of silent music notes projected by a forgotten alien technology. Her name, Subject F2, Caliona. She crash-landed in the outer courtyard, disrupting 2 moss gardens, an ornamental sand pit, and the dome's favorite turtle. Ilarius ran out to help, but slipped on the wet tile outside the airlock. He slid 8 meters and crashed into her unconscious body in what he would later describe as the most awkward meet-cute in galactic history. Her eyes opened. They blinked, twice, slowly. Then she asked the question that would haunt him for years. "Do you ever dream of procedural error messages?" He did. They fell in love in exactly 3 conversations. Not fast, not slow, precisely medium. Conversation 1 was about atmospheric decay patterns. Conversation 2 was about whether a shadow is truly empty or just full of invisible light. Conversation 3 was about socks. They kissed in a decontamination room full of ozone gas. It was neither comfortable nor sanitary, but it was charged. Then the story began to stall. They visited the compost archives. Twice. They ate lunch. 6 times. One meal was described in great detail. A paste made from lunar turnips and emotion-flavored gelatin, shaped into triangles that melted sideways when bitten. This scene takes 7 minutes of the runtime and contains a flashback to a dream Ilarius had about a dog that wore pants. Conflict arose, or rather, conflict tried to arise, but was stalled by bureaucratic misfilling. A galactic warrant for Caliona's arrest was received, but printed on invisible paper and accidentally shredded by the station's recycling robot, Marvin 12, who was depressed but functional. Romance bloomed in montage form, long walks around the perimeter of the dome, more glove adjustments, quiet stares into mismatched sunsets. They watched space whales breach across the vacuum. Ilarius cried, then cried again, then explained that he cried not from sadness, but from overexposure to lavender air, then cried because that made him feel disconnected, then laughed, then cried again. The emotional loop continues for 4 minutes. Midway through, the narrator changes. A new voice takes over, an elderly woman named Helga who claims to be Caliona's great-aunt, though this is never confirmed. She begins reading from a journal that may or may not be written in future tense. It reads, "He held her hand," or something like it, and she didn't pull away, not at first, not until the orbit collapsed under the weight of their indecision. The city beneath the dome begins to collapse, but very slowly, like a fondant cake tipping in slow motion. Caliona reveals that she was sent to spy on him, but also that she has no memory of who sent her. Ilarius proposes. She accepts, forgets, denies, accepts again, and suggests a third option, pre-marriage emotional draft bonding. A battle starts. It is unclear who is fighting. Blasters are fired but hit nothing. Time begins to fold, then unfold, then crumple like a wet brochure. They kiss again, this time surrounded by floating paperwork and sighing bureaucrats. Then Caliona begins to dissolve. Not because of drama, just a slow molecular reversal caused by the moon's seasonal magnetism. Ilarius holds her as she flickers. He recites poetry, bad poetry. He makes it up on the spot. Like a speck in a teacup, you drift through me, stuck in my glove emotionally. The story almost ends, but doesn't. Instead, we cut to a 9-minute interlude of the holographic goat, retelling the entire story in vague metaphors using farming terms. Then, finally, as Caliona's last pixel disappears into the twilight, she whispers, "Remember." The sock conversation, Ilarius nods. He places her final glowing hairpin into the dome's memory slot, a strange alien machine that projects emotional echoes. Her image appears, frozen, smiling. Then it loops for eternity. And Greg the Speck drifts by in the background, unnoticed. The end, or not, but probably yes.